right now. Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome inside the Fan Cave. This is the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Bob Pompeani here at 412-575-2600. We're doing it on television. We also do it on the radio. Chris Mueller is up at 93.7 The Fan. And tonight we have a lot to get into with the news that I would start with, and that would be Brian Flores signed back with the Minnesota Vikings, even though he still may end up either in Pittsburgh, Baltimore, or someplace else. Very interesting development there. Chris, what did you make of it?
I make of it that he's going to end up back with Minnesota and that they are just making sure they dot their I's and cross their T's. I just don't get the sense when you have an announcement like this that Flores is close to being the final candidate and the best candidate, or I shouldn't say the best, but the preferred candidate for any of the vacant jobs. Maybe he could have tried to go and get like the Cardinals job, but really who wants that? So the way that this dropped and the way that it was framed, it just tells me that the Vikings still really like him as defensive coordinator, and they should. He was unbelievable managing that group, especially the back half of this year, and so they wanted to lock him up. I would be pretty surprised. I think kind of like people said, oh, well, you know, he might get a job. I'd be pretty surprised if Brian Flores was a head coach next year. Our
KDKA.com/Connect poll of the night is an interesting one, brought to you by Penn West University. If the Steelers would hire Mike McCarthy as their next head coach, what grade would you give it? And we have 4 selections, A, B, C, and F. We skipped the D. So he met today, and certainly the guy has a big history. He knows how to play offense. He knows how to develop quarterbacks. But I don't recall, other than Tennessee, any other offers he might have had or any other interviews he may have gone on. What does that tell you about, you know, his future with any of these teams, specifically the Steelers? Do you think the Steelers right now would like to hire Mike McCarthy, or at least he's going to be one of their finalists?
I think he is going to be one of their finalists, their final 3 or 4. I would give it an F for the record, Bob. No slight against Mike McCarthy. I'm sure he's a great guy and everything else, and I think he's actually, by his record, pretty obviously a better than average coach, like a B-minus coach. He's very similar to Mike Tomlin. He commands one side of the ball. That's his specialty. He has a track record of getting teams to the playoffs of late and having double-digit win seasons. He had 36 wins in 3 years for the Cowboys, but he doesn't win playoff games. In his last 7 seasons, he's got 1 playoff win, and there are some of the same frustrating issues with him that I think people were tired of with Mike Tomlin. Game management, time management. I think things with Aaron Rodgers got stale with him in Green Bay. That's why he got fired. He does have a track record going way back of working with guys like Aaron Brooks, more recently getting the best out of Cooper Rush. But I think you said it in the initial setup here, Bob. The only other interview he had reportedly for a head coaching job was Tennessee. He kind of removed himself from that process preemptively, I think, when it became evident to him that A, he wasn't getting the job, and B, Robert Saleh was. So I think he kind of released that little news blurb to Tom Pelissero, I think it was, saying Mike McCarthy has removed himself from consideration to focus on other jobs like Pittsburgh. Okay, sure. That just tells me that in a league where, in a hiring cycle where former head coaches who've already got experience in that role are seemingly coveted, just look at some of the guys who've been hired, Pomp, and everybody's always looking for a quarterback whisperer. Most people don't think Mike McCarthy is good enough. That's how I interpret that. I don't really know how you could take it any other way.
Yeah, the other thing that's become apparent here is, you know, every year it's a different class of potential candidates. Last year it was a good one. This year, maybe it's not as good as what people think, because all of a sudden, how many retreads, and I'll use that word politely, but how many retreads have ended up with different teams? In fact, Harbaugh didn't waste any time. The Giants looked at him, wanted him. You saw others do the same thing. So what does that tell you about this class? Because there's still some really nice coordinators out there. I'm not so sure who's the hottest of them all. And, you know, so far it doesn't seem like the kind of class that's going to produce the Ben Johnsons, the Liam Cohens, and that sort of result.
So I think one of the things that explains what you're discussing here, describing here, Bob, is this. The majority of the more qualified, i.e., coordinator-level people, right, where you're not making a projection on a guy who's never called plays on either side of the ball, are defensive. And I still think teams, even though like Mike McDonald's having success obviously in Seattle, big success, Vrabel's a defensive guy, I think teams are skittish still about hiring a guy who's never been a coach who's a defensive guy, because you know you're going to have to keep replenishing the offensive coordinator if that guy does a good job. There's a very, just relative dearth of offensive coordinator candidates, or even offensive candidates, period. I want Nate Scheelhaase. He is a passing game coordinator. He has never called the plays. Everyone loves McVay coaching staff branches for good reason, but Sean McVay calls the plays there. So you are making a leap of faith if you're any team and you hire Nate Scheelhaase, that he A, would be a good play caller if he chose to do it, or B, would hire one, could assemble a staff, can lead a room, can kind of reach across the aisle in his own locker room and talk to the defense the way he talks to the offense. And I just think a lot of owners aren't necessarily willing to make a bet on that guy. I think if it were a year or two from now, and you could somehow say that that Scheelhaase, for example, was at least in name the offensive coordinator for Sean McVay, then there are teams that would take it more seriously. Right now, a guy like that, I think, could be a home run hire. He could also be a swing and a miss.
Yeah. Well, also, if you're a guy like Shula, if he doesn't get a head coaching job, maybe you offer him the job here in Pittsburgh. And if he should be good at it, a year or two, they may move on from him. He gets another job, so be it. At least you have some success from an offensive point of view. We'll talk more about that. Also, a little controversy going on in Buffalo with the Bills after what happened today. We'll get all that and your opinions as well. It's 412-575-2600. Call us right now. KDKA Plus, 93.7 The Fan. It's the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. All right, welcome back. This is our Xfinity tweet of the night. And as we said, we talked about Brian Flores earlier, and this is the tweet here from Tom Pelissero. It says the Vikings have signed defensive coordinator Brian Flores to a new contract. Flores is a candidate still with the Steelers and Ravens head coaching job, but if he doesn't land one, he will stay in Minnesota with the Vikings, as we discussed. I want to also, Chris, talk to you about Buffalo's situation, because today Terry Pegula and Brandon Beane both spoke, and man, it was interesting what happened. Pegula pretty much stood up for Brandon Beane and said, no. The coaching staff wanted to hire Keon Coleman. It wasn't Brandon Beane. He took one for the team. But then there was a later video released what showed Brandon Beane at the Combine, who was pretty much saying, yeah, that's the guy we want. First of all, why say that if you're the owner? And second of all, man, you got Keon Coleman, who's still a young player on your team. What's he thinking at this point?
I think the why is you're closing ranks around Brandon Beane, like you said. I think it's just a burial of Keon Coleman. Just terrible job by Pegula, in my opinion, with like the comments here. You're also seeing this shift, and I think it's been driven by Howie Roseman's level of success around the league, in Philly. And I think this is a shift around the league. The strong general manager model. I think most teams are going away now from the head coach has a ton of sway. Now, John Harbaugh had to fight Joe Schoen to get like some sort of deal worked out in New York where John Harbaugh was going to report directly to the owner. Mike Tomlin, obviously, strong head coach model here, but Brandon Beane is clearly, like, your daughters are right in the wheelhouse age, Bob, where Aladdin was coming out when they were kids. Yeah. Remember Jafar? He's the vizier. He's whispering in the Sultan's ear. Oh, no, I'm right here. No, forget about Sean McDermott. Like, think about it this way, seriously. This is the best way I've heard people describe it, kind of amusingly, too. The coach has to go out and coach, right? So Brandon Beane puts together the roster, and McDermott's got input, obviously. But the coach, McDermott, in that case, has to go coach the team. Meanwhile, for like 3 hours on Sundays and then longer during the week, here can be Brandon Beane whispering in Terry Pegula's ear, oh, by the way, these are all the things McDermott's doing wrong. I'm your buddy. It's like a golden retriever palling up to a person. Who are you going to be more loyal to? Your trusty sidekick there, or that mean old coach who can't get anything done? For the record, there's no way Brandon Beane should have a job if Sean McDermott doesn't have a job either. Like, those two should have been gone together, and probably Brandon Beane should have gotten fired. They got mad in Buffalo. Now I'm on my soapbox here. Not that, like, I think Sean McDermott is deserving of, like, some sort of staunch defense. They got mad that Sean McDermott told them the truth, which was that roster is lacking in several places, and they rely on Josh Allen to carry them, Bob. And Pegula and Beane heard that from the head coach, and instead of taking like real criticism, which can sometimes be hard to hear, They just said, nah, we're mad about this, and we're going to kick this guy out if he doesn't win a Super Bowl this year.
Yeah, and today, Pegula just stood right behind Bean and said the roster wasn't a problem. Yes, it is a problem, and it's pretty obvious to those who watch the team. They had holes in that roster, which made it very difficult. And they also made an interesting statement there that Terry Pegula said this decision was made because of that game in Denver. Well, first of all, your quarterback didn't do all that well in that game. There are a lot of reasons to make a decision, but that seems like the weakest way of doing it by saying we base this all on the Denver game. Well, that Denver game should have resulted in a win for Buffalo. So the whole thing's messed up right now, and we'll find out what goes on after that and how much, I think Brandon Beane's going to be on the hot seat here if things don't turn around. And I wonder what the expectation is on the new coach. He has to pick it. Who will it be, and what is the expectation?
Well, I think it might be maybe Brian Dable, or Brian Dable will end up going to where, I don't know, somewhere. Maybe he'll go to Buffalo, I guess, instead of be Philly's OC. I think it's going to be an offensive guy. I mean, I'll bring up Mike McCarthy again. If they're really desperate for a guy who'll max out Josh Allen and maybe is going to be a type B personality where Brandon Beane can kind of be, king in the castle, picking all the groceries and then tell the coach to coach. I'm not even trying to do this because, I'm being glib. Why wouldn't you call Mike McCarthy? Yeah. Seriously. If you thought that he was, the right guy to make Josh Allen even better and you'll just assemble a better roster and McCarthy just worry about the offense, blah, 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 then make that your play. But I just have this weird feeling that this is going to blow up spectacularly in Buffalo's face. I'll also say this, Bob, just to localize it for a second. Omar Khan's been around a very long time with the Steelers. I think he has Art Rooney's trust. There's no reason to think that regardless of what hire they make, that Omar Khan's not going to want to wield a much bigger kind of sway and stick in this organization from now on. I mean, because Mike Tomlin cast a huge shadow over everybody in terms of influence. Why wouldn't Omar Khan try to make this, hey, this is Omar Khan's show now?
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, he might not. He may just go back to the same model, which has been in place for a while. That'll be an interesting part of the discussion. Let's go to the phone lines. We have lots of people, beginning with George and Menneson. George, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hey, good evening, guys.
Hey.
Couple points real quick on McCarthy. The fact that in the past few years, has he gotten in any other interviews with any other teams? I don't remember that, so that's kind of.
I think last year he just kind of took it
Dallas
off, George. I don't think he was looking.
Yeah, he was with Dallas, so recently. I don't think he was trying.
No, I don't either. But and quite frankly, I was surprised because I hadn't heard his name at all in this cycle. Next thing you know, he's here, completes the interview, and we'll see what happens after that. Jim is in Natrona Heights, and now he's on the air. Hey, Jim.
Hey, how you doing, guys?
Good.
How you doing, guys? My question is this. On all the talk shows, all I hear about is, they have to draft a young quarterback this year or maybe next year if there's not a good, group. What's wrong with Will Howard? Is there something we don't know about him that they don't even give him a chance? I at least see what he can do unless he was terrible in practice and everything.
Well, he got hurt at the wrong time last year. That denied them of a chance from really getting some evaluation with him. But it may move forward as if, I don't know what they're going to do at that position. I suspect Aaron Rodgers won't be back. A lot of people believe if McCarthy comes here, he'll bring him back, but I don't know if that's going to happen. And I know, to me, it's still up to Aaron Rodgers, but it's 80% to me that he won't be back. So who is their quarterback? And if you don't bring in, anybody else besides Mason Rudolph and him, I'd give him every chance that I can give him. Why not? And if it works, great. If it doesn't, you move back into a point where you can actually draft a little higher and make a pick in 2027.
Bob, do you or anybody that you know suffer from WHIHS, Will Howard Irrational Hope Syndrome? If so, please call Chris Mueller and I'll set you straight on this. He was a 6th-round pick. He has never thrown even so much as a preseason game pass because of when he got hurt. He was the quarterback of the national champion team when he then got picked in the 6th round, okay? So he went to a football factory school, closest thing to the pros you've got. He played well down the stretch. He led them to a title, and teams saw fit to let him get all the way to the 6th round. By the way, as a guy whose body measurements are about the same as Josh Allen's and who is a pretty good athlete, what does that tell you about Will Howard? That people who do this for a living and who have millions of dollars at stake every time they make these evals think that there are some fatal flaws to his game that just will not translate in the NFL. I'm all for people who want to give him a shot just because, screw it. Hey, we picked him. We might as well give it a shot. Fine. But this idea that they have this diamond in the rough, Tom Brady 2.0, is founded in absolutely nothing of substance whatsoever.
I've never said that about Tom Brady. I'm just saying that I think there could be something there, and the only way you're going to find out is to let him play. You've drafted him. And by the way, those same people who make all those millions of dollars have been wrong on a lot of people over the years. So this is not an exact science. I don't care how much money they put into it. He may have an opportunity, and if he does, I'm going to be interested to see what he does with it. If he doesn't work out well, that's
I'm more
part of
interested.
it.
Okay, I'll meet you halfway here and not be as rude as apparently Austin Bechtold was to you today on the Pomp and Joe show, where I heard he was just very dismissive and disrespectful. But that's a story for another day. I will meet you this far. If it's Mason Rudolph or Will Howard and you're going to use a true, hey, whatever happens next year happens with the new coach, you're not walking into a great roster and everything else. I'd rather see Will Howard. I'd rather see what I have never seen before. I know what Mason Rudolph is basically going to look like. But
right.
I'll just caution you and everybody else. I'm not saying I'm not saying everyone's making Tom Brady comps. The list of good 6th-round quarterbacks in the 7-round draft era is pretty small, even when you keep Brady in there. Matt Hasselbeck, I think, was one. There's just not that many success stories for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, Purdy's one of those outliers as well. He was not too many people who were looking for quarterbacks, even in the 7th round. It's just an arm for camp passed on him, including the Steelers, and they needed one. They took one, and he wasn't Brock Purdy. It was Chris Oladokun.
Real quick, Bob, if Bo Nix was actually healthy and playing, where would the 4 quarterbacks this weekend have been picked? 1, 3, 3, and 12.
I know they're all, and don't get me wrong, you have to have an elite quarterback. I'm not suggesting. I'm just saying in this situation where they don't have a franchise quarterback, you got to figure something out because you may not be able to satisfy that problem this year as well. Got to take a break. Come back with more right here on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. All right, welcome back. We've got about a minute left. Chris, I spent 2 hours tonight wasting my time watching Pitt against Boston College, 2 bad basketball teams. But I wanted to watch and see what they had in that game, and I saw a lot of missed shots, a lot of missed layups. Pitt had shot 22% in the first half. They only scored 22 points. They lose 65-62. These are identical teams in terms of record and the way they are. What's your take on where Pitt basketball is right now and how hot is the seat for Jeff Capel?
It should be scorching. I think this is probably got to be it for him. I know he brought in a recruiting class that was supposed to be really good for next year, but I don't know how you can keep him. I mean, it would be on complete faith. He just has not shown the capacity to coach these guys up, the guys that he does have. They had 42 points, I think, that they left out there, according to Stephen Thompson. 16 missed layups, 10 missed foul shots. That's like Chris Mueller in grade school basketball, we're talking. So I think it's got to be the end of the line because it's DEFCON 1 for that program right now.
Yeah, not good at all, and they're now 1-5 in the ACC. And on that notion right there, that's the signal. That means we're at the end of the show. Chris, thanks. We'll see you again tomorrow night. Thank you guys for joining us. Back here tomorrow at 10:35. Have a good night, and thanks for watching.